Happy Friday, everybody. First Friday panel in quite some time, but happy to say we're joined by the greats. We have John Greene, group editor of all our Sunday sport editions. We have Tommy Martin from Virgin Media Television and Mr. Conor McKeon of the Irish Independent, GAA, golf, more besides.
Are you trying to tell me something that I don't?
I didn't know what else the besides was, so I decided to...
Cyclocross, yeah.
Okay. We've lots to get through. So, just want to mark the beginnings of where the 2025 All-Ireland Championship was won. I don't want to sleep on this story. The training ban officially lifted today. This is the last day that inter-county GAA players are not training together.
Yeah.
Illegally.
Amazing.
Is that right?
Illegally.
So as of tomorrow, Donegal, Team GAA Donegal will be in the air. They are heading to Al Riyam Island in Abu Dhabi. Average of 25 degrees for a week's training. I would think Michael Murphy, between the FRC you don't have to track back and 25 degrees this week, is saying to himself, good decision.
I wonder if there are any trees you can hide in over there.
Yeah. Declan Bogue.
7-star hotels.
Well, there sure are. I had a look at this place.
Nice.
They're having a better week than us. In the 42 reported... this was first mooted early October when Jim McGuinnes informed the county committee monthly meeting that they'd be having a week-long get-together. Didn't disclose the location at that point. The cost, though, reported €80,000 for the week. So there we are.
That's a spicy meatball. I've never heard of a GAA team, inter-county team going away pre-season. You know, generally it's before the championship, so it's in that. Now I know there's a very narrow window, but it always seemed like the ideal time because you've got the muck and the sludge and everything out of the way, and you've trimmed back the panel, and you have a sense of what you're doing, and you have that very concentrated week. You know, the La Manga used to be the go-to place where everybody went for some reason. I think Joe Kernan brought that in 2002 with Armagh, and everybody followed suit. But this is a complete departure. You'd want to have a fair idea, I suppose, what kind of style of play you're going to be.
That's my question. What are you doing at this time of the year for a week?
Learning the new rules.
That's what I was wondering.
Fitness. Team camaraderie.
How much fitness can you do in the first week in December, given that your first competitive game is the last weekend in January?
25th, yeah.
Oh, I'm just curious. But I'd love to know what they're doing.
Yeah, I'd say intense fitness, intense tactics, one night on the beer, have a great Christmas. Or actually, sorry, I'll see you for training on Christmas.
I wouldn't say the last bit.
Yeah. I feel like when I said the cost is €80,000, that somehow there's an invitation here to have a cost spiralling, shake our heads kind of a conversation.
It feels like a lowball number, doesn't it?
I don't know. Apparently people in there are Donegal people, well, everywhere, of course, but on the ground in Al Riyam helping out with it. I don't have any great problem with it.
Nor do I. I'm just curious as to what they're doing.
Yeah.
But it goes to show the power of Jim McGuinness too, you know, that he can, you know, it's a bit like they built that wall around Convoy where the team train.
Well, interesting, yeah, they're building a new fence at a cost of 40 grand now.
Yeah, so like these are not things that the county board are going to foot the bill for, and it shows you the value of having somebody like Jim McGuinness there, because I know there was a group in London of Donegal expats who obviously have a few quid, and they were able to kind of shake the trees to meet the cost of the wall.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine this is the exact same. County board will not fund something like this at all. But you'd imagine that having somebody like a Jim McGuinness or a Kieran McGeaney, one of these very inspiring kind of figures, because you know we've all heard Jim McGuinness speak, and he's still the only manager that I've ever listened back to what he said at a press conference, and a drive back from a press conference. I found it so compelling. So you can imagine what he's like when he's trying to tell you that your contribution is going to make a massive difference to Donegal's season next year.
It's mixed sort of reviews for Donegal builders, because I presume most of them in the UK are funding this trip, but it doesn't say much about the wall that they have to rebuild it a year later.
No.
Like, it's obviously, you know, grotesque and absurd, and I'm absolutely delighted to hear it, Joe.
Yeah,
well, I suppose it's sort of like, it's funny that Conor could say, like, as you know, I'd imagine a good body of knowledge of these things over the years, and like the ramping up over the last 20 years about the things going from level to level. How is this the first sort of big foreign training camp that one of the top counties has gone on? Like, Joe Kernan did the sort of pre-championship thing, and is it an escalation? Is it another case of is this just McGuinness doing the ultimate McGuinness thing, which is how far have things gone? Okay, I'm just going to push them another bit.
What
The ultimate logical conclusion of any trend in the GAA. Like before he came along, people were starting to mess a bit with defensive tactics, and he said,
I'll show you.
"Stand aside, I'm going to go all in."
So in 5 years' time, what intercounty team worth their salt aren't on a pre-Christmas Middle Eastern?
Generally, what Jim McGuinnes does, everybody else follows within.
The only thing about it is it is a really curious time because
It is.
like I know in most counties at the moment they're still doing trials. Like, do you know what I mean? They don't have a squad. So obviously this shows that Donegal are a little bit further on their.
Well, to be fair, I think you answered your point in that when you talk about the change now, that short gap between league and championship, and I'd say like that's maybe the first bit of evidence that they've sort of taken from those restructured years. Is like, right, that little gap is not enough to do the sort of work that we want to do. So maybe there is a restructure of, and maybe they want to make sure, because Division 1 is going to be so competitive this year, maybe they want to make sure they stay Division 1, and then throw the new rules into it.
Plus they're going straight into the Ulster Championship, which, you know, it's a very, very different post-league challenge to what Dublin or Kerry or those kind of teams are going into. You know, there's definitely a sense that those teams could take 10 days to ramp themselves up, whereas like once the league final, maybe not next year, but I think this year was the first round of the Connacht Championship was 6 days after the league final. So you get yourself into a league final, you're not really leaving yourself a whole pile of wiggle room to get any work done.
Somehow I think they're going to be contenders, that's for sure. On GAA and fences, by the way, in Richie Hogan's recent book, he would knock off as a teacher and go and find a pitch wherever he could to just practice and have maybe 100 slitters with him. And there was a pitch at DCU he got to quite like, and there was one day he's there and it's 3-4 o'clock and he's in the middle of his session and a fleet of cars arrive to the pitch, and he recognises straight away, oh my God, it's the Dublin football team. And they all start getting out of their cars, and Cluxton is going to the opposite goal to start warming up, and he's there, God, I've got 100 slitters scattered everywhere. And Jim Gavin walks over to him and says, hey, he recognises him, Richie, absolutely no rush. Take your time, finish the session. We'll work around you. And Richie, the confident person that he is, thinks, right, I will then. And so he does just do his thing.
That's what Jim actually meant.
Yes, exactly. Not picking up on the undertone at all.
In your own time doesn't actually mean that.
And so he finished his session, off he went, and he came back the following week and a giant fence had been erected around the pitch. So there you are. We'll push on. So FIFA in the news both this week and next week. FIFA World Cup, Club World Cup I should say, draw was last night. This is going to be on next June into July, 15th of June to 13th of July. So previously the Club World Cup, yes, the Club World Cup was this annual tournament hosted by 7 teams, which we generally, I think, ignored. It was on, but I don't know if anyone was sitting down to watch it. So the Club World Cup is now going to feature 32 teams, and instead of being on every year, will be on every 4 years. So, Tommy, you sent a message to the group this morning wondering, quote, sexy new format, or officially, have we had too much football? Can I give you some of the group stages here? And I think the answer will become apparent. Group E, River Plate, Urara Red Diamonds, Monterrey, Inter Milan.
Oh,
Group F,
There's a lot of big rivalries there, isn't there?
Fluminense, Ulsan, Mamelodi Sundowns, Borussia Dortmund.
Sundowns are very good this year, actually.
Man City, Wydad, Al Ain and Juventus. What dystopian, hellish nightmare is this?
this is a new Disney Plus Star Wars spin-off, isn't it? Yeah.
Honestly.
The absolute worst thing about this, and I mean the worst thing, is that for all our mirth and for all the fact that we're up on our high horses looking down our noses at this, is, you know, FIFA trying to wring yet more eyeballs and more. By the time it comes around next year and the Premier League season has been finished for 10 days, I'm definitely going to tune in.
Sorry, if Virgin buy terrestrial rights, that's just
It's the greatest show in football. Roll.
It's we don't need this, do we? We just don't need this.
Well, it's funny. The reason I kind of framed it like that was because I remember when the Super League thing happened a couple of years ago, and talking to somebody who was kind of like a casual, like maybe more of a GA fan who watched the Premier League and watched a bit of rugby and that kind of general sports fan. And it was talking, and there was this next sort of narrative of like, this is disgrace, this is the end of it, civilization as we know it. And Gary Neville was up on the, on the barricades, and this guy kind of went like, well, I don't know, like, Bayern Munich and Barcelona on a Tuesday night, I'd watch the shit out of that. Like, so sometimes you kind of need to go, all right, well, what is this thing? Okay, obviously civilization's, declining as we know it, but like, take it on its merits. Now, I think what you've just read out there kind of, elucidates the merits pretty clearly, because one of the big flaws that they've had in it is the sort of team selection model, certainly for the European team.
I still don't understand why Chelsea are in it.
So it's basically I think
they won the Champions League.
Yeah,
not so long ago.
So the form or the criteria.
Not so long ago is one of the criteria.
You've won the Champions League in the last 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
And then it goes on UEFA rankings, but you can't have more than two teams from the one country. Hence why Salzburg are in it. Salzburg, who've won 1 game out of 5 in the Champions League this year, who aren't even the Austrian champions. So
and then Inter Miami just get picked.
Literally, like,
we need to have Messi there, so let's find a way of getting.
Yeah, Inter Miami finished top of the sort of the pre-playoffs thing, but they didn't. Then they lost, like, so. But it was like Messi has to be there, whatever way that you can make him be there. So the lineup is not going to be, Liverpool, Arsenal aren't there. Arguably, probably the two of the best teams around the moment in terms of the Premier League side of it. That's immediately then you're kind of looking like every World Cup you tune into, Brazil are there, France are there, Germany are there. It's generally the best nations. So does that sort of, obviously undercut it? They couldn't get a TV deal for this thing, right? Even Virgin with their billions, as you know, Joe, we're sort of saying, no, we'll hold back on this one.
There's an Autumn Nation series that we're saving our pennies for.
Exactly. We've got Malloy to pay for, like, so, But so what's happened is that Gianni Infantino, FIFA president, his Saudi sort of backers have basically pumped a load of money into DAZN, the streamer. DAZN have taken the rights for a cool $1 billion and are going to make it free to watch around the world on DAZN. But they also have the opportunity to sub-license to terrestrial broadcasters and that was, Infantino's thing is this is great. It's going to be free to watch around the world. So it's essentially part of the Saudi power grab in that they're funding the transmission of this tournament. I mean, obviously, if this tournament happens and if nobody sees it, it's like the tree in the forests and all that kind of stuff. So this is what's behind it, and what it is the bigger picture is that move away from like what FIFA's goal is. We need to move football away from being a Eurocentric. Like UEFA is the sort of power base because that's where all the big clubs are, all the big tournaments are, generate the money with the Champions League and all that, and all the big players, all the players from around the world flock there. Can we make a power base that is sort of an opposite pole to the UEFA power base, i.e., we get Saudi to bankroll it, and we create this thing that is sort of pulling out the sort of a magnet of sort of energy and power away from the European power base. So that's kind of, and obviously the main thing is to generate more income for FIFA at the end of it.
Well, on the Saudi point then, so that's this week, that's yesterday, into next week on Wednesday, FIFA are having a get together. Really just to rubber stamp the two hosts of the next two World Cups, Spain, Portugal, Morocco 2030, and then Saudi Arabia in 2034. Interestingly, break with tradition, this will be a virtual event, no media. I was reading Gianni Infantino since he was re-elected in Rwanda in March of 23, 18 months ago. Not a single press conference, actually. So he's kind of just decided, it's 2024, I don't need the media.
I was looking at him, at a picture of him even this morning, and like I said to you, could you imagine if he was in charge of a small country that had a lot of military capability? He would be a very dangerous guy to have around.
Well, he's certainly attached himself to some interesting people. Obviously, he's at all manner of sporting events with MBS all the time. Saudi, one of the reasons we know Saudi are getting the 2034 World Cup is that he already announced this last year. Where else but on his personal Instagram page. That was around the time Australia said, yeah, we're not even going to bid. We're sort of sensing a mood here, so we're out. And so in the build-up to Wednesday, it's been announced Saudi, their bid has passed the technical report with flying colours.
Oh, phew.
So they got
they were under pressure there for a while.
A 4.2 out of 5.
That's
Whereas
okay.
the US, even though the US have all their stadiums already built, they only got a 4 out of 5. Saudis came in at 4.2. It's a record-breaking score.
It's a huge lift.
Yeah.
I think.
They called the fact that they don't have 8 of their stadiums built as a medium risk, despite the fact some of their stadium plans, you would have to call them ambitious. There is, for instance, I presume people have generally seen The Line at this stage, this new linear city, which is kind of remarkable science fiction stuff. No cars, no streets, no carbon emissions. Just 200 meters wide. Like the stadium will just fit in that 200 meters wide space, and it's intended to run for 170 kilometers and somehow hold 9 million people. It will have an artificial moon. Which city doesn't? I hear you ask. And the exterior is like a glass mirror. Now, shockingly, this amazing plan has already been besieged with delays, reduced aims. It's proving
That was the case with
problematic.
that was the case with artificial moons.
We hear you. We've got our children's hospital.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
Indeed.
You get a quote, and by the time they're building it, then the whole
But nonetheless, FIFA have said medium risk on some of these stadiums. I suppose the serious point, and it's just the obvious one to make, is so many people are going to die making these stadiums, and unnecessarily, because of how Saudi Arabia treats its workers. So there was a documentary last month on ITV, and we're going to speak to people behind it next week on the show. It was called Kingdom Uncovered. So MBS's big plan is Vision 2030 to kind of reposition Saudi Arabia for a post-oil world as a tourism hub and an IT hub and you name it. So this has been on the go since 2016, 8 years. How many would you care to guess have died in 8 years? Part of Vision 2030. Now don't go nuts.
On construction projects.
Yeah, so it's been going for 8 years, Vision 2030. Things like The Line, this city. So in 8 years, how many workers have died?
1,000 a year.
21,000 dead. Yeah.
And I think that's only from
Nepal, Bangladesh,
Yeah.
India, that they can keep track of. Apparently African immigrants harder to track. And so in this documentary, there are reports of, working 2 weeks at a time, 0 days off, shocking conditions, poor medical treatment. Somebody said they were treated like slaves, protests completely shut down. But fear not, FIFA did say that Saudi has committed to respect, protect and fulfill internationally recognised human rights. So it's all going to be...
It's just Qatar revisited.
That was the remarkable thing, that FIFA, you would think they might have been a little bit gun-shy post-Qatar. They've gone for precisely the same scenario here.
This guy he's a runaway train. Like, he's just...
Doesn't he make Sepp Blatter seem quaint and
the
just
irony
good
is
old-fashioned?
that he was the sort of the new broom.
Yeah.
He was the sort of the lowly functionary in Sepp Blatter's time, the sort of the office junior who, oh God,
Desk clerk, like
all the big guys are after messing up. I'll come in and I'll sort this out, and he's turning out to be, I mean, it's like, a whole new level. And I think, and the same thing being, if we thought Qatar was a dry run, like Qatar was like the sort of the test run for this, because this is going to be like, I knew those figures because I read a couple of those articles about it in the last few weeks around the time the Lily Agg, the Irish player, was asked about the letter that they sent, the female players sent about Aramco, the Saudi oil company, sponsoring the Women's World Cup. Like the absolute gall of that, that if a country with Saudi's record on women's and LGBTQ rights, that will be basically having to wear Aramco logos and sort of play under in those circumstances. But this is like everything you see. We heard all these debates about Qatar in sort of like miniature form. Yeah. Like all the numbers were sort of divided by 10, but it's all been multiplied by more and more. And as you say, Joe, rather than being chastened by the experience of Qatar, where all Western media, ZDF documentaries and Gary Lineker and BBC One opening the programme with, concerns about human rights, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's get into the football. They've just looked at that and gone, that was a roaring success. The world brought together in this new, again, a new pole in terms of where the centre of power in global football is. Let's push on. Let's go bigger. This is unstoppable. This is unstoppable now.
Yeah. So there we are. Just to round it off, by the way, if that all does sound a little bit doomy and gloomy, there was at least the comfort of I think a trusted voice internationally this week who was part of the Club World Cup draw, and he moved to reassure us that Gianni Infantino and FIFA are A-OK.
I just want to wish everybody a good evening and a good time. And the event is going to be incredible. I will try and be there if I can. I would. We'll see what happens. But I just want to say you're led by a man named Johnny. I just know him as Johnny, and he's a winner. And he's the president, and I'm the president, and we've known each other a long time. And I'm so honored to have this kind of a relationship because soccer is going through the roof, as everybody knows. It's been doing fantastically well. My son, Baron, is a tremendous soccer fan. He's actually a good player. I guess not quite that kind of good, but he's a very good player. But he loves soccer, and it really has taken over the United States in terms of a sport. And I congratulate everybody, but in particular, I wish you to have a good time. And I want to say my highest regards and respect to Johnny. And it's an honor to be with you, and we'll be with you very soon. And we're going to be watching the World Cup, very importantly, also very soon. And I was very responsible, along with Johnny, in getting it. And it's going to be a fantastic thing. Thank you, and have a good time.
He's really grown on me.
We're doomed. We're doomed. We're so doomed.
Yeah, it really is the end of the world, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels that way.
But it goes to show you, which is the lesser evil, the despotic sporting administrators or the clearly unhinged world leaders?
Well, they're starting to merge. That's the really.
They're definitely gravitating towards each other. It's really
they're finding each other in the room.
Yeah.
There is a sort of pattern, like all the worst people in the world are taking over.
Yeah.
Like it is.
Yeah.
It is
true.
At least it has a nice trophy. Did you see the trophy?
No.
It needs a gold key to open it, apparently.
Okay.
It was unveiled. Was it this morning or yesterday morning?
I missed it.
Was that Johnny's idea? Or?
Yeah.
Johnny. Does he think his name's Johnny?
I think so, yeah.
That's getting changed by deed poll, isn't it?
Johnny. Okay.
Johnny.
We will leave that situation behind for the time being. Another story we wanted to touch on. John, you were interested in this. So Mayo GAA, after a county board meeting this week, came out and made an acknowledgement. It won't be signing off on its accounts for 2024 just yet because there's an ongoing engagement with the revenue commissioners. So in effect, they seem to be on the hook for about 120 grand, a tax liability of 120 grand, which relates to cool camps in 18 and 19. We don't really know much about this or what happened or where the mistake or the oversight was made, but they got in touch and made a voluntary disclosure to Revenue. Revenue said, okay, well, let's have a wider review. There's a wider review happening, and Mayo GAA just came out and said all county boards should ensure they're fully compliant and have a look at things. I don't know enough about this to know what to think.
Yeah, on that specific point, reading that statement when it came out last night, I don't know about you, Conor, I definitely felt the way it was written that they expect that there is more money due to owing, that they know there's, and I don't have any doubts. I don't know in this case, it's hard to understand this because we don't have detail. And I do not for a second think that there aren't some county boards out there or some GA clubs out there who have, gone beyond being kind of casual about their finances and been a little bit worse than that. I mean, with the example of the Parnells Club in Dublin, which is practically gone out of business effectively, and owed a lot of money to Revenue and others. So I don't for a second think there aren't some issues out there, but in general, we know there's 2, 3, 4 county boards being looked at the moment, isn't it?
I think
Revenue.
I think it was 5, but the plans I think on foot from that is to go after them all. Because I think
go after sounds like they smell blood here.
Yeah, but that's exactly what it is. Because I think there's different stages of this, and the first is to ask counties or people, whoever it is that they're investigating or that they're engaging with, is written that you want to tell us.
And is there? Sorry to interrupt. Is there a tradition of Revenue and county boards?
No, none.
No, this is a new development.
Well, I think it's gone back to about just before COVID. Isn't it? Kind of started.
Okay. But during the 90s and stuff, Revenue.
No.
Okay.
my thing, where I'm struggling is, and I have to be careful how I phrase this, because I'm not saying that we should be cheating Revenue, but I don't think in general that that's what's happening. And it's something I've been thinking about for the last few weeks, because the furore that followed Michael O'Leary's joke a few weeks ago about, the joke he made at Peter Burke's launch about teachers, and then teachers reacted in very vociferously within hours of the thing. And one of the things that was said was that teachers were the backbone of society. Now, that made me laugh, to be honest, when I heard it, because they're not. And I was thinking, what is the backbone of our society? And our society, the way we live and the way we enjoy it, most of us, is built on volunteerism. That's what the real backbone of our society is. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about health or education or sport or whatever. It's all propped up everywhere. Even schools are run by volunteers to raise the money to help them to keep the schools going, to provide the activities that they do. And sport in Ireland is completely and utterly propped up by the voluntary sector. I saw a figure of 1.5 billion is what it's worth to the economy, the activity of the volunteers in sport alone. And I'm just thinking, the majority of these are given their time, driving around the country, given X amount of hours per week. What's going to happen if they feel that this is now going to become something where revenue are going to be looking at county boards? I don't think it's just going to be the GAA. I think rugby is going to get it, soccer is going to get it. Who wants to be a club treasurer now? Who wants to be a county board treasurer? If a referee is getting 30 quid for referee in a match, is this what we're talking about now, that they're going to have to start making these payments to referees tax compliant? Who's going to referee matches? How is the whole sporting sector going to function if this fear that in some way I'm going to have revenue coming down in my house in a way that I didn't intend for I don't set out as a volunteer to do anything other than to create a good environment for people to live in their community. And how are we going to marry that now between that spirit of volunteerism, which the whole country is built on? I'm sorry, when I was saying about teachers, I mean, teachers do a good job and all that. That's not my point. My point is, who are the real backbone of society? And it's anybody who contributes in any way, their time, their money, their car, their house for meetings, their whatever, washing jerseys, all of the stuff that still goes on. How are we as a country going to look at that if we have this thing hanging over us whereby, well, did you have a receipt for that, getting those jerseys washed for, you know what I mean? I just think we're going into an area. We know there are people in sport who make money who don't declare that money, and I have no issue if they're being targeted. If there are people being paid 60, 70, 80, a really good living wage and not having to declare it or not paying tax on it, I have no issue with them being targeted. But this seems really low level, and it seems like it could be really harmful to the ethos of amateurism and volunteerism. And that's what I'm worried about.
Interesting.
It's probably the worst time ever for revenue to go after the GAA, though, given that it's only a few years since they stopped taking cash at the gates. Like I was talking to somebody who was involved in the county board. Now, this is a long time ago, but apparently what used to happen at league games, because National League gate receipts get sent back to the GAA, they're not kept by any county. But what they used to do was that one county board, a delegate from the visiting county board, had to sign a declaration that the attendance was whatever they said it was, so that the money enclosed would tally up to the gate receipts. And he told me that there was one particular county, and he was asked to sign the declaration what the attendance was about an hour before they opened the gates. So there probably was a really good time for revenue to go after the GAA in a very...
have two gates declared and a third gate operating, so there was two for the GAA and one gate for the county board.
Do you wonder... is the thinking from revenue, is this a sort of a Trojan horse to get in and suss out the actual issue, which is the payments you're talking about? And the fact that it's coincided with Jarlath Byrne's comments recently.
Well, it hasn't coincided because this revenue thing has gone back to around 2019 when they first kind of started putting out these little noises that were going to start.
But I think Jarlath Burns, I think it's true though. I think the reason Jarlath Burns said that
was because of revenue.
Yeah,
as opposed to the other way
I think
around.
I think it was triggered by that because it's like we're going back to the ever shady subject of payments to managers, but. You know, I'm not sure you're going to uncover a whole lot by going through county boards accounts because generally speaking, it's supporters clubs and private fundraisers and other ways.
Yeah.
Like a county board can't have an account where it shows a payment for whatever to a. So I'm not sure that's the right tree that they're going to be shaking. But like everybody knows who managers are, and like if without any of us here in this room knowing the precise details of what anybody does, if we were to draw up a list of all the managers in inter-county football and hurling over the last 10 years, we'd make a fair stab at which of them are getting paid.
That's what struck me is that if you want to clamp down on that more serious issue, less admirable issue of inter-county managers taking serious chunks of change home, the way to go after that is not to audit the county board, it's to audit the managers.
Yeah. How I actually don't, and I understand a little bit about the GAs behind the scenes. You know, I can't understand how there's a tax liability from cool camps. I can't get my.
Do you not pay for cool camps? Is there not a lot of money involved in cool camps?
Yeah, but it's all done. It's
expenses for people
coaches.
come to coach and come on.
But it's generally speaking, they're really well run.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen both sides of these camps. You know, having somebody, my son, going there, but also our club organised one time, and it was all very well done and all very clean. And so maybe in this case,
it doesn't seem like the big sort of smoking gun.
Well, it's hard to see where one county board would rack up a liability of an unpaid €120,000 or whatever it is they may have paid. So I'd be really interested to find out.
Okay.
And with the expectation that they owe more than that. And
I think John, your point on volunteerism is such a good one though, and it's bigger picture about like the burden of governance, the burden of having everything cross, the burden of growing memberships in small clubs, the burden of all the things that have been boxes that have been ticked.
The problem for clubs isn't getting members; it's getting people to run the club.
Yeah.
Getting people to commit their time more and more. It's harder. And are we looking at a stage now where county boards are going to have a full-time chairman, secretary, and treasurer?
Yeah,
is that what we're looking at now?
Probably.
And even down the levels, it's like anybody takes on a board position in a club, like a local soccer GA club, knows it's getting more and more. I was at my local soccer club's AGM last night, and there was just a lot of talk about the FAI club mark has been made compulsory for all clubs from next September. So that's going to be a lot of stuff, good stuff around safeguarding and all that has to be in place. But it's work that somebody who's there going, I didn't even want this job, is going to have to take on. And then the next person is, when he's trying to get out, the next person going, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
and then suddenly the whole thing collapses.
So you add up all that hours. What's that worth to the state? What's that worth to the well-being of the state? It's a balance there, right?
No, it's a fair point. Mark Cannam's Pathways Plan was passed at General Assembly, FAI General Assembly, 74 votes to 56. So we now have an aligned football calendar. The interesting thing is, so at present, of the 72 leagues across all levels of the game, of those 72 leagues, already 32% of them are playing an aligned calendar season. So it's the other 68% playing the traditional winter season. You'll have to switch. But your teenage son, you've kind of lived experience of playing the summer football, as we'll call it for the purposes of the conversation, in Meath. World hasn't caved in. It's manageable. It's okay.
Yeah. I don't know what I think about this on the grand scale, except to say that it seems to me that what's been happening in Irish football across all levels hasn't been working. So a plan needs to be put in place to find something that does work, and this seems to be part of whatever that plan is going to be. And the main objection to it seems to be around summer holidays and around clashing with other sports.
A quote here from Chris Nestor. He's of the Midlands Schoolboys and Girls League. He said, I'm surprised it passed. From anybody I was talking to in the schoolboys, schoolgirls section and the junior section, they all thought this isn't a good idea. The summer season does not suit people. You're going to be asking people to play or trying to play games when they're on their holidays. So that was his big reason.
We've had it this season. John, my son John, he played soccer, hurling and Gaelic football through February to November. There were the occasional clashes, but very few. My experience and where I live was that everybody worked together to make sure that there weren't, so trainings were on different nights. So Monday night was football match, Tuesday night was soccer training, Wednesday night if it was on, Monday night was Gaelic training, Tuesday night soccer training, Wednesday night either a Gaelic match or hurling match. They wouldn't have them the same week, they're every second week. And then a soccer match was every Saturday morning. Occasionally there might be a hurling or a Gaelic match on Friday night. Okay, it's busy when you're a parent, but that's the gig. If you have sport in the house or whatever, that's the gig. And I can't think of, now there may have been, but I can't think of any occasion where there was a clash. And if it was, it might be a match clashing with a training session. I can't ever remember a match clashing. And all you need to do is communicate. And if the organisations are genuinely interested in the well-being of their kids and want them all playing all the sports, they work together. And I don't see that as being... There may be other reasons I haven't thought of why it's not a good idea. I can't think of them, but it works fine.
Okay.
It's not the end of the world.
Okay. Any objections in the room?
No, well, listen, sorry, Conor. I was obviously reading about this story yesterday and, looking out the window at about 2:00 in the afternoon, in the biblical thunderstorming going, well, that's a few votes for summer football. And I'm involved in my daughter's soccer team, and the fixtures are scheduled up until not just this weekend but next weekend, and due to resume the 8th or 10th of January or something like that. And I see the parents looking at me going like, what, really? It's like, this is Ireland, and I just and then the season ends sort of mid-May, and you might have a club sort of event on June bank holiday. Then you're looking at the pitch is quite near our house, and I'm just walking past it in June, kind of going, there's nobody playing football out there. It's a lovely evening in June, and we were out here in February mucking around, praying that the rain would stay off on a Thursday evening so the council wouldn't call the pitches off. And now it's June and there's nobody playing. There's no kids playing soccer. I guarantee you the people who do the most complaining, sorry, I'm about to go into stereotype mode, but I guarantee you people who do most complaining about this is the people who, yes, you're going to have kids away during the summer. Most, like the GAA shuts down for a few weeks or whatever, are people who put the result over participation. Absolutely.
You've got, in soccer, you only need 11 players to field a team. Any games I was at, there was plenty of subs there. Play all your players. You might be missing a guy or a girl for one match or two matches in the summer. Yeah. That's it.
And even if because
play the next person in.
In the realpolitik of it, okay, you're going to have to deal with these the premier clubs and all these ones with aspirations. Okay, then maybe you have a summer cup tournament, or you do something, or you tweak it. You say, right, season goes up to second week in June. We have a 4-week summer cup. It's a tournament, but it's kids out playing, especially those ages from under 8s up to 14, 15, 16. Whatever. That it's just about getting them out playing. And if the big guys want to have the prestige of winning their leagues, they don't want to have big matches on and when there's people away on holidays, fine, you can work around it. But the principle of the thing is surely achievable, that we're not waiting here in December going oh God,
And as we all know, is that there's a fewer number of weather appropriate weekends on which to stage any sort of sport. You'd imagine, I don't know, it is an increasing feature of the national leagues in football and hurling. In big grounds that have groundsmen and everything else, that there's always 2 weekends where matches are called off, where they never were before. I think this year, no sooner had the season started in Dublin, the GAA local season, I think the first 4 of the first 5 weekends, all the council pitches were called off because you get that really, really heavy weather. And the same thing, it drives you nuts when you do go past pitches in August and there's literally nothing going on. But my main takeaway from this is I don't know what sort of sporting organisation can get a motion passed on a 56% majority.
51.
51. That's brutal. That's you want to go Old Testament, 66% or nothing.
It was 57% in favour, wasn't it? So if that had been a GA rule, it wouldn't have passed.
No, not even 56. 74 to 56. Maybe my maths are off. It's in the 50s anyway.
Yeah, it wouldn't have passed Congress.
No.
Which gives you a sense of what's going to happen now, that it's not going to be taken lying down.
So are they going to take the stick out now?
I don't know. Carlo came out pre-vote and said over our dead bodies.
Yeah, so what are they going to do? Are they going to not register Carlo and say either play when we tell you to, or...
Don't know.
And you don't want to be dismissive of people who've worked in the game their whole lives and understand the challenges, but I think As you said, John, the first thing you said there, whatever's been done in Irish soccer,
working.
it's not working, and it has to be something better.
So DDSL came out and said they'd surveyed their members, as in the parents, who are also the volunteers and the referees and the trainers, the coaches, all that kind of stuff. So the parents are also the volunteers, and they preferred the winter season for whatever reason, holidays, lifestyle. I don't know exactly.
I think it's just a lifestyle thing. You know, people are very much, when they get to, you know, when you have kids and they are involved in sport, you know, the school calendar really does kind of set the rhythm for your life.
Yeah.
You know, it's part of the whole thing. You have you know, we do this on a Wednesday, we do this on a Friday, we do this on a Saturday. You get your homework done and you have your dinner. And I think it's more of a lifestyle thing than anything else, because it certainly doesn't make any sense from a sporting point of view.
No.
Who wants to be playing football in this kind of weather versus?
And by the way, I think the bigger plan, which is again aspirational, is that when the crap weather comes, you go inside and play futsal or you know, or whatever. You know, there's every town in the country has a gym or a hall, and you get in and you can't launch that. Now that's, you know, maybe not something culturally that we bizarrely we don't have a big culture of a lot of these indoor sports, like given how terrible the weather is. But you know, it makes total sense, like to sort of say, right, that's it, that's Storm. You know, Storm Conor coming in over the Atlantic. That's grand though, because we're playing futsal every Friday night with the kids.
Do you know what I'm interested in? It's a theory as much as anything. Because during the week, Ruisha Littlejohn, in her post-match interview after Ireland lost to Wales, was bemoaning our lack of technical ability, and we were wondering why are we so shit technically at everything? Like, you know, our male soccer team, female soccer team, why are we bad technically? And I am half wondering if the weather is a contributory factor.
Have you ever tried to pass a ball in
wind and rain?
Yeah.
So maybe like futsal in winter, sunnier days, it does encourage, you know, short, sharp passes and touches and a faster game, as opposed to it's windy, kid, get rid of the ball.
You played a bit of soccer, Didi. I never really played much soccer. So look, if you were back there now, would you like this? Would you be in favour of this as a player?
There was something nice as a kid about the rhythm of it, tied in with both the Premier League season and the school calendar year. And admittedly, there was all.
Now it's going to tie in with the Club World Cup.
Yeah. And even like playing Leinster Senior League, there was that rush in May of like, lads, we have 4 games this week because we just need to get them all finished. But there was a certain bonhomie to that. But there was something as a kid quite nice about, you have 2 months off in the summer. Now go and play pitch and putt when the Open's on, and tennis when Wimbledon's on, and rollerblades in your estate, and you know, I didn't mind it.
It felt like the most normal thing in the world.
It felt very normal.
Yeah, but that's because that's what you. But what I'm saying to you is, what you, as a player now,
it makes more sense. It sounds fine. The idea of playing the summer sounds nicer. I would have been the type that like, Mum, we're not going on holidays in July. Yeah. We're just like that game.
Summer football doesn't mean summer football. If summer football means spring and autumn football,
it does really. Yeah. And there is a gap.
I think that thing of like, you know, because the leagues all finish before the end of May, and they mightn't start again until mid-September. So there's even if you did still take July and August off, you could still have 6 weeks extra decent weather football.
No, it's true. Look, the Malloys like to spend a month in France, as you know. No, I think it makes sense, and the futsal indoor aspect during winter makes even more sense, because to be fair, you know, rose-tinted glasses, there was nothing more depressing than travelling what felt like an hour in the car to get to a pitch and be told, the match is off, and drive home again, which happened plenty too.
My abiding memory of playing underage soccer was like mud and welts on your leg, you know, that bruise that went orangey, purple and stuff like that. Like that's literally the thing that I can think of. I couldn't.
Deep heat.
Yeah, and then you realise when you open your bag that you hadn't washed your boots from the last time. It was brutal.
And playing GAA, I played both. It was lovely playing summer evenings GAA. Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing about it, just from the Dublin perspective, is that the GAA season does take a break, unlike a lot of the other counties. Rural counties, it does take a break for July and August.
Right.
So it is like an acknowledgement. Like there is a thing where people do. I mean, I think Niall Driscoll from the DDSL was on Off the Ball during the week and made that point about people going away for 2 months, and people were kind of scoffing at it. But like my wife's a teacher, and she certainly tries to bugger off for as much of the 2 months that she has. Backbone of society, of course. And you know, probably takes the kids with her, but I think
you have a grandson.
That's okay.
Yes, it's well.
Don't call me a hero, Tommy Martin over there.
If ever you want a few jars in the summer, I'm your man. But again, it's that's not a good reason to shut down all.
Probably not. No, I think
and to go back to your
the
point,
right choice. Yeah,
with Littlejohn, what she said. I mean, it was really for her to come out with those comments when she did in the heat.
Quite self-effacing and honest.
And it told. I mean, we're looking at our international football soccer teams for a while now, and how far off they are in terms of their technical ability and so on. So Irish football needs some kind of grand plan, and I'm going to assume this, and it needs to stop fighting amongst itself.
It does. It's nice. It's
whatever
nice
it is.
Have a plan.
It is a plan.
Yeah, it's nice to have one.
Yeah. Some kind of structure that we are trying to, on one level, have as many people playing this great game as we can, and then on the other level, when it gets to a certain point, we are going to start. I was watching a thing. Do you know? I don't watch YouTube much, but I ended up in a YouTube wormhole last night, and this thing came up: the 10 greatest Manchester United comebacks under Alex Ferguson. The amount of Irish players that were in that couple of minutes, that that were on both sides of Man United and the other teams were playing. The amount of Irish players who were playing Premier League football in the 90s, you just forget.
You do.
It was so common.
Yeah. We will push on. So just wanted to mention that they're linked in. Frank Roach tomorrow in the paper has an interview with Eddie Maroney, a.k.a. Effin Eddie, because Aherlow are back in the big time. They're facing Austin Stacks of Kerry in the Munster final, the intermediate final. And the good people at Clubber TV have decided there's only one man who can commentate on this situation. And it is 75-year-old Effin Eddie Maroney. Because Eddie would have made his name in 1992, the Tipperary under-21 football final, where Aherlow made history. And before viral was a thing, I guess Eddie sort of went viral. So here he is, 1992. This is Effin Eddie. I don't want to slander the man, but clearly nursing a hangover, as he details, and also on commentary.
And it goes to who comes out, but the player is coming out. The player drives it down the field. Leonard is down. Leonard is down. There's an injury. There's an injury there to Mark Leonard, lads. Will you go into Mark Leonard, won't you? Oh my. Jeez, I think I'm going to get sick after that beer yesterday. I'm not well. Players been held up. I see Dave taking a slug out of the bottle. Dave, send it down here. Brian, bring down that bottle. I could do with it. How is your man? How's your man, Ryan? Good health, long life to you. Just we did a lot of different stuff yesterday, lads, huh? We put him down well. Kicks it out this side of the field, cause the race for possession. With Don Welch. Kennedy has it. It's a shakeup. Yes, it's kept in. But he's not. The referee is the same now again. He's not interested again. There's no crutch to him at all. The man got a boot in the head and he got a boot in the head and you're not looking at it. He got a boot. It's on the camera, you can't miss it. He got a boot. Yeah. Then he's dilly-dallying with the ball, he'll get caught. Now he kicks a low ball in towards his brother Conor. He passes it down to Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan, and it's... out of for Jesus' sake, that's a fucking penalty. The ball. I'd say it is a free out. Yeah, I'm going to collapse. And the game is over. I love history, man. Our county champions on the Division football. What a victory. Oh, mother of God, there'll be a big night in the Glen. Several big nights. What a victory for the Glen.
Amazing.
I can't believe that's 1992.
Well, do you know what?
72 then?
I remember when this came out, Sean Potts, formerly of this parish, came over to my house when we were going off to some match, and he had a video of it, and it was like a bootleg thing at the time, because like people had cassette tapes. What were they called? VHS cassette tapes.
You might have to explain to the younger listeners.
Yeah, and if you remember back in the day, like it wasn't easy to copy a VHS cassette onto another. You had to have somebody. And I think somebody actually used to go around selling these.
You needed two video machines and a cable.
Yeah.
And
it's in Frank's piece. This went viral via VHS tapes around the country.
Yeah, I played for my in-laws down in Tipperary, and they don't seem to think it's particularly funny. But that's Eddie. What do you?
And if you get the chance, there's a video going up on the website with it. If you get it, he looks fantastic. Like he looks in great health.
He's looking forward to it. So Aherlow go again, and in a way, he was sort of a precursor to local radio understanding that people want completely biased
They
commentary.
don't want the other side.
Don't give me any of this. Like, none of this. If you're
Journalistic
commentating,
integrity
if you're
out the
commentating
window.
on our county team in action, you give it socks. And I think local radio's really gone that direction, and people love it for that.
That's great. There's certain press boxes that you can sit in. Roscommon being, what's your man Roscommon?
Willie
Hegarty.
Willie's a
some
brilliant.
of them are just brilliant. Like some of them, you'd forget that somebody scored a point or a goal and forget to mark it down because you'd be so engrossed in the local commentary. They've thrown themselves into it completely. But it's a mad thing because we kind of see commentators as being these kind of modulators of how we enjoy matches. So even like you have this thing online where people of Liverpool fans or Manchester United fans have these big conspiracies that Martin Tyler or whoever it is, and they'll find situations or old commentaries where they're particularly sad or they sound morose commentating on a goal and that sort of thing, as though like everybody has it in from. But the alternative is this, it's we pan back to the Sky Sports studio when Ian Wright dances a little jig or whatever it is. And I mean, if that's what we want, just give it to us.
I crossed the Rubicon this week in watching the Liverpool, Newcastle and United Arsenal games with the overlap crowd and muted the commentary. I'd never watched with a watch along before. It turns out it's way better.
You enjoyed it, yeah?
It was so good, and I wasn't sure how I'd feel about it. So one, I was like, how's this going to sync up? And of course, they had the clock from the Emirates on the top of the screen with the score. So I was like, okay, I'll sync it up perfectly. So I've the boys on my phone, and I've the 55-inch TV HD perfect picture. So I don't really need the commentator to tell me Bruno's on the ball.
Meanwhile, the kitchen is on fire and nobody's paying.
Yeah, and it's just enjoyable to listen to, but also if you're of a mind that would I miss the insight of the co-com? You're actually getting non-stop insight the whole time from the lads, and it's almost more insightful, the kind of minute points that they talk about tell you so much, and they would never have time to talk about them post-match because in and of themselves they're not important, they're just these small moments.
Yeah.
So I played a clip during the week whereby Ahmed had the ball, he was about to take on Zinchenko, and Xerxes kind of runs into frame to show for the ball, but there was space behind Zinchenko, but it turned out Xerxes, I guess, had run into that space a little bit, and the boys almost just the professional footballer's eye in unison. Keane's like, get out of his space. It was like a cardinal rule had been broken, and Ian Wright's like, he doesn't understand the game, Roy, and it's that kind of rat-tat-tat-tat. Neville's like, take him on. If you want him, take him on. Why doesn't he take him on ever, Roy? And then they talk about that, and Neville's like, when I was a fullback, when they checked back, it was such a message to me, and he never takes him on. Or Carragher, just great stuff. Mazraoui tried to run out of defence, and Carragher's like, he gets so cocky, that guy, because he'd hit a really good pass 5 minutes before. He's like, he's got that pass in his head. He thinks he's Beckenbauer. All of a sudden, he's not. And it's this really interesting, full of kind of small moments, insights, as opposed to Bruno gives it to Ahmed,
which is a really formulaic sort of structure of commentator and co-commentator roles. I'm sure if you'd Dave McIntyre or somebody sitting here, he'd say that like commentator takes the action, pauses, goal goes in on the replay, co-commentator comes in. So that's the sort of the set in stone, how it's done. The commentator, you got the occasional Andy Gray sort of spilling over thing, and obviously the Nevilles and Carragher's do it a bit, but since time immemorial, that's been set in stone. But you're never going to get that sort of as it happens inside them, because it only comes in after the thing has happened, and it's it ends up being a sort of a recap,
And it's too late because the co-commentator can't go, can I just go back 2 minutes and 55 seconds to that brief moment where Ahmed was in a one-on-one?
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. So it suddenly struck me as the traditional model as very antiquated and less fluid than the boys talking, And
what is it? What when you said, because I didn't see it, but you can still
you
pick
can watch
it up
it
and actually go back and watch the whole thing, and even sort of the lads gathering before the match, and then the thing starts and all that. It was really like the sort of ambience or energy of you. And this is such a cliche. This is like a marketing department's cliche, like watching the match with your mates, except your mates have played 2,000 Premier League games between them. So it's that energy of you sit in a pub, like and the match is on, and you're there for friends or whatever, it is that sort of narrative. Okay, it may dip into in a boring bit. You might start talking about something completely different, like, you know, you see that movie during the week or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's that sort of narrative of what's he doing? What's he doing? Why isn't he? You know, that sort of
it's great
little thing. Except your friend is an idiot who's never played football and doesn't know what he's talking about. Whereas these guys, you are actually like, well, this is actually good.
There were so many moments I was like, that's so interesting.
I watched one of the games this year in Croke Park, sitting beside one of our columnists here, Philly McMahon, and I realised that in as many Gaelic football matches as I've watched in my lifetime, and in as much as I think I know about the game, all I'm really doing when I interpret something is having my own sort of
prejudices.
Not even prejudices, but like my own understanding. I'm trying to like confirm what I think is my understanding of the situation. Oh yeah, this fits neatly into the thing. And Philly was kind of saying, oh no, he shouldn't be there. And if he marks him from the other side, that ball's not going to come in. And I realised there was a whole level of understanding that I'm never going to have about it.
Will Slattery was injured in the weekend again. I'm boring people at this stage talking about it, but I mentioned it to him, and he was saying in American college football TV, you have two options in the commentary. So to use an Irish example, option one is you listen to Dave McIntyre with...
it's very Virgin Media TV here, isn't it? Like,
well, I'm getting there.
Lived experience.
We're going to have to bring some ideas here to Brian Gleeson. So option one would be Dave McIntyre with Damien Delaney commentary. Option two on American college TV is Tommy Martin with Richard Dunn and Brian Kerr in studio, supping their tea, talking through the game. And I thought I would probably spend a fair...
Apart from the Tommy Martin bit, obviously.
So that's me and you would have to keep quiet, I think.
I loved the bit where like I just scroll along and Ian Wright was like eating his dinner off his lap, and I was like, well, I'm glad of that because like, you know, when do you eat in this?
Essential, yeah.
When you're first half, second half sitting with your pundits, is that what are you getting?
It's you know what, when you say it, you immediately go like, yeah, actually, you learn way. Like I learned. Like way more about the game.
For rugby,
it would work,
or you know,
it would work.
You know, and they all obviously they all bring a different slant to it. Like the guys that we work with. Again, not making it sort of but like specific to what I know is like from Damien Delaney, for example, is very into the tactics
level.
Yeah, high tactical stuff. You know, Richard Dunn might have a real understanding of what the centre halves are doing and what that sort of, and almost kind of understand the psychology of the combat between striker and
if it was being broadcast, would that change the tone of what they're saying off air?
I think that's the skill would be to get that sort of.
I think they could manage it,
Yeah.
Once they know they're on, because I find listening to the three rugby lads, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'll say something. What was that? And they won't even. They won't even break out. They won't even look, and but in unison they'll say this. They'll be like, "He didn't mean it." They just have such an understanding of whatever moment is unfolding, and you learn. There's definitely times I've listened to them have a conversation on something that's happened in a game, and I've sort of sat there crestfallen, going, "God, we're not going to have time to bring that to the viewer because it's too small picture. We have to start with, well, they won. What do you make of the performance? Where does this leave Andy Farrell? What about the number 10?
Because often the times by the time it gets to half-time,
it's too small to go back to.
And by the time it gets to half-time or full-time, that's not the story.
No, it's not the story.
But it would have been amazing 15 minutes
TV.
in.
You'd almost have to come on at full-time and go, we know Ireland just lost and there's a lot of big stuff we need to get to, but can we just show you something technical here on 22 minutes which will blow your minds? And it's the more interesting stuff.
Sports fans are and it's why sport is so interesting in terms of why people consume podcasts and newspapers and that kind of thing, because they're really interested in what people who know what they're talking about have to say about something that they like. I was doing something yesterday when I was listening back to the football podcast, and I actually stopped what I was doing when Gary Greene started talking about corners and Arsenal and how to defend them and what to do, just for a couple of minutes. Like, genuinely brilliant little snippet of knowledge that I don't have that I'm listening to, and I think we're all fans at the end of the day, and if what you were saying was to happen, I absolutely think a lot of us would do it, because even like I was saying to you this morning, you see somebody do something and you think, oh, why would that's wrong, but I don't know, and then Roy Keane comes in and says the same thing, and well, I do know a little bit about football. I just, and increasingly I know people, I do it, are watching live sports with the commentary muted. You have something else. You have a second screen, maybe. Or you're doing.
I think the bigger the occasion, the more inclined I would be to go for the commentary. But given that there are matches on every single day of every single year. There are so many, they can't all be important. That's where here was match day 14 of the Premier League, and the boys doing their
and
thing.
it's interesting that, I was talking about the structures or the formula, if you like, of the, of the trade. Like, it's literally 100 years old.
Yeah.
Sports commentary, like, it's and what in this part of the world, it developed from, the BBC outside broadcast department or light entertainment department. We're starting to film sports events. They came up with the thing, back to square one phrase. So they would publish like a grid in the Radio Times where all the, because they reckon people wouldn't know where the ball is in the pitch, so the commentator would have to say into square one across. So you'd have your Radio Times there with the grid marked out.
I think that's quite a clever system for radio still.
Yeah. So and then sort of post-war, they sort of evolved it a bit more to get away from the sort of tuxedo wearing, received pronunciation, 1930s kind of public schoolboy thing, to make it a proper and actual craft of commentary. So all the kind of the Harry Carpenters, the Murray Walkers, Brian Johnson, David Coleman, all these guys came out of basically a stable that the BBC set up, and that sort of that style of what we know as commentary came from that. So obviously the people in Ireland, the RTEs, the Micheál Hares and all that was the sort of template, is that you are this rigorously impartial journalistic figure, description, facts, the stuff that is important.
That was of its time,
yeah,
wasn't it? I think that.
But I also and now obviously we're in a world where all those sort of things that we that sort of post-war understanding of what the world is, what we are supposed to do. Like, I mean, in the media, we know it better than anybody in terms of where impartiality has gone. So it's no surprise that's maybe going out the window and to a more less structured sort of.
I also think that the format, like the kind of traditional format, a lot of times doesn't sort of give the best environment to get the best out of good pundits, because they almost you can tell that some of them lapse into the language of punditry. Like, there's a nomenclature there that they feel that they have to express themselves in, because they're in I'm only using the Sunday Game here as the example that I would watch most frequently of the sort of flagship sporting highlight shows. But like, it's a big bright thing and there's cameras pointing at you, and there's you guys know more than me, and it's not a natural environment for people to say the things. And
it's hard to forget you're on.
Yeah, and you're doing packages, mini packages or whatever it is. Whereas if you're watching a game in real time, particularly in hurling, like you hear people who know hurling and who played hurling at a high level talk about hurling, and it is a different language. Like, it really is a different language, and there's so much insight into the sort of technical skills that they don't even know are sort of particularly insightful things that they would just accept as knowing it. But sometimes getting from that to what you hear in a highlights program, maybe at half time or full time, or at night time when they're going back through the highlights, it goes through a bit of a filter, so that's why I think the idea of having a watch along sounds like a brilliant idea.
And as the technology evolves, the form will.
Yeah, I think it just struck me on Wednesday. Oh, we're on the cusp of a big shift. It's going to happen.
Yeah,
big shift.
And you got to hand it to Neville. Like, they're so smart.
Yeah,
they are so smart.
Yeah, really good.
And they've got the full that combo. It's brilliant.
There's a great moment.
It works really well.
David Ray makes a really good save.
The camera thing.
And Keane just goes, cameras. And Cara goes, yeah, cameras.
Because he dived across. It was from the header. It was a brilliant save. He was at full stretch.
No, Roy Keane, cameras. And I was like, I'm here all day for
Sorry, you're not always going to get those guys with that chemistry and those personalities in a room. Like, it always work. Like,
I'd say a bad version could be bad.
Yeah. Yeah,
Neville just seems really smart, and he knows how to do it, and then he knows how to get the full.
He's got an entrepreneurial mind, I think.
He's a producer's mind, I think, as well. I think he's a bit like a mini producer, and then he's got Keane, and Keane is just delivers every single time, doesn't he? He's
getting so annoyed at Rashford as well. It's just so good. He's sort of made the headlines because at one point Rashford tried to head the ball and made a mess of it, and Keane just goes, "Do you know what? General play, he's shocking. He's a shocking footballer. In general play, isn't he shocking?" And the lads are all like,
It's getting exciting again.
So I don't know, Tommy. We'll see what that means for next 20 years. But just to say, Dave McIntyre is the greatest commentator in the goddamn land. He listens to the. I can imagine him listening to this. I'm going to get a message.
He can do unstructured.
Yes, he can. Yeah. That's us done on this Friday. So thank you very much to John Greene. Anything cooking for Sunday I need to know about?
Yeah, there's a couple of there's a couple of really nice pieces. Yeah.
Anything you want to?
Eamon Sweeney on the back page has done a piece on the woes of the Irish women's team, which I think, following on from David Kelly's analysis, it's in the same vein. Okay. And Dermot Crowe's done a really excellent piece on Parnell's, the GAA club I mentioned earlier, and how they blew 25 million.
Okay, sold.
Yep.
Tommy Martin of Virgin Media, thank you, Tommy.
Sure.
And Conor McKeon of the Irish Independent, thank you.
Cheers, Joe.